they aren't able to get to everything. It's always a balancing act of trying to make sure you provide an opportunity to hear from each speaker that wants to speak on each item, while still managing the overall length of the meeting, and it's a difficult thing to juggle. So we will at this time go ahead and move to the first of our afternoon presentation or hearings, which comes to us from Community Development, and this is regarding the zoning ordinance revisions for medical marijuana uses.
This is your further consideration of a local ordinance to regulate the residential cultivation of medical marijuana and the regulation of collective or cooperative dispensing facilities, which we'll refer to as dispensing facilities for the purposes of the hearing. Your board asked staff to bring a proposed moratorium that would stop the acceptance of new permits and halt the permit applications for medical marijuana dispensaries. But the one topic that you wanted more discussion on is the ultimate allowance that could be, or the ultimate amount of marijuana that could be grown within a residential, within a house or a residential accessory structure. So staff has been working on various alternatives, trying to balance the access to greater quantity of medicine, and also, according to testimony, the situation where you actually have to have two individual growing rooms if your growing model involves a clone program where you have a so-called mother plant or a parent plant and then clones that have to operate under two different lighting regimens. Trying to run that type of growing model in a 50 square foot area may make that growing model infeasible.
As Director Gerard mentioned, the primary differences between Alternative 1 and 2, of course, are the amount of space that can be given to cultivation in a residence, 50 versus 100 feet. Of course, Alternative 2 has increased cultivation limits, so there is a potential increase for maybe federal interest, although their interest depends. There's also a risk, I think a greater risk, of having those nuisance impacts, because what may be okay, again, on one house in 80 acres may not be okay on a 40 by 60 lot in town. And so that's the concern about going to 100 square feet, is that it could disproportionately impact neighboring community, neighboring family members. So that's the concern that staff has with that. Under federal enforcement, they might be more interested in a larger cultivation area, but at the same time they have said in their memos that they're not really looking at seriously ill individuals who are just growing for their own personal use. The one that, as Director Gerard I think very nicely put it, gives us a little more unease is, of course, Alternative 3. And we did want to bring that possibility to your board for consideration. It is kind of getting up there, because we really are kind of, again, putting these performance standards in that do get us close to, okay, you're not overtly permitting something, but you are sort of impliedly permitting. I think that would be the argument that the other side would make. So that's what causes us a little dis-ease about Alternative 3. The same issues come up with regards to the federal enforcement potential issues there, as I just discussed, under 100 square feet, if you're going, again, up to 100 square feet. But it is a little more legally risky under the PAC case, Alternative 3.
Further board member comments at this time? Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up to members of the public who want to comment.
Just for the record, if I could just introduce the title of the ordinance.
Yes,
prior to public comment. And the title is an ordinance of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Humboldt, adding Section 313-55.1 and Section 314-55.1 to the Humboldt County Zoning Code relating to the regulation of indoor medical marijuana cultivation within a residence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will open the public hearing at this time and welcome members of the public who want to speak to us. Just come forward. Welcome.
Hi, my name is David LaPaw, and I want to say medical marijuana patients are not just a bunch of sick people. They are also part of a cultural group, marijuana smokers as a whole. Whether or not they use marijuana medicinally, marijuana smokers as a cultural group have been treated with extreme prejudice by the government. Often they have been subjected to worse treatment than violent criminals. They have been harassed and abused by the police, arrested, financially ruined, and held in captivity. Even though medical marijuana is now legal, the war on medical marijuana smokers continues. It is your job as our elected officials to protect the civil rights of all cultural groups. And now I want to talk about the ordinance part. Marijuana smell is not inherently disturbing in and of itself, yet some people are disturbed by it simply because it is marijuana. Similarly, some people are disturbed by the smell of cooking meat, simply because it is meat and they are vegetarians. In your ordinance, you single out marijuana growers and marijuana growers only to be regulated for their smell. You remove the rights of marijuana growers to produce any smell. All other smells, from fireplaces to barbecues to incense smoke and perfumes, are not regulated. Marijuana smokers and growers' smells are singled out with prejudice as the only smell regulated. Your ordinance should say the opposite instead. It should say that medical marijuana growers have equal rights to all other human beings. Medical marijuana growers which smell should be treated the same as rose gardens which smell of roses or barbecues that smell of meat, as normal, legal, smell-producing activities. The smell of marijuana should not be regulated at all. I also want to say something about the electrical use part of the ordinance, that people on oxygen machines have medical devices that use way more electricity than a grow light, and that's not regulated at all. And again, you're singling out medical marijuana growers to, as it's not fair that you're singling them out. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
For many people, including me, marijuana is a necessary medication. I do not grow it, so I must buy it from the dispensaries or get it from friends who grow. For this reason, I must disagree with your moratorium on dispensaries. If you shut down the dispensaries, I will not be able to buy this medication. And you want to do it right before Christmas, when a lot of people here are home for the holidays and need it. Being arrested is physically and emotionally traumatizing. To make sure that medical marijuana patients are never arrested, you should set limits so high that it is impossible that any patient will ever be arrested for marijuana. Right now, your ordinance set limits on cultivation that guarantee that patients will be arrested. Remember, you are not regulating medical marijuana. You are regulating who can be arrested and charged with marijuana crimes such as possession and cultivation. If you set the limits so low that every grower and smoker exceeds them, then they will instantly all become criminals in the eyes of the police. Your ordinance turns almost all patients and growers into jailable criminals, a process I call from a patient to a prisoner. And your ordinance fails to protect the rights of medical marijuana users. Now I would like to talk about the other way that I get marijuana from growers. When I have no money and I cannot afford to buy the somewhat pricey medical marijuana from dispensaries, this eighth of an ounce was $32. This one was $40. Some of the growers give me their small buds, which they consider too small to smoke or sell. Other times, I do housework, such as washing dishes or helping with computers, in exchange for marijuana. It is not possible for a marijuana grower to produce sufficient medicine in a 5x10 area with only 2 grow lights. If you restrict growers to such a small space, they will not be able to grow for enough for themselves, and they will definitely not have enough buds to give me or to pay me with. Larger grows are necessary so people like me, who don't grow, can get enough medication. Your regulations should allow large grows, but require only that the wiring to the house be done correctly. Please do not regulate away dispensaries and growers, or you will regulate away the ways that I obtain my medical marijuana. I would also like to point out that because the dispensaries sell marijuana for such an expensive price, and then there's also the expense of lighters and rolling papers and other things that you need to smoke marijuana, your permitting processes are only going to make it even more expensive, which is going to make marijuana even more expensive for the patients who need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Murray McCall, and I'm from McKinleyville. And I just wanted to state that Mendocino County a few years ago had the right idea for the regulation of marijuana. And it was 25 plants per resident, not to exceed 99 plants per parcel. And we'll leave it up to you to worry about the electrical and whatnot of your area. My oxygen machine, that's running in my room most of the time, takes 1,500 watts to run it. My heater that warms up my room takes another 1,500 watts. That's equal to 3 grow lights. What's the problem? You don't put any regulation on. Nobody's out there checking out whether or not my outlets will work for my oxygen machine. So the idea is the lights ain't the problem. The water on the floor is not the problem, because everybody knows if you have too much water on the floor, that makes you have moldy pot. That is, if you're growing marijuana. If you're just dabbling at it and playing around, then yeah, you're going to have these problems. For my own personal use, that makes it too moist. To have water standing makes the humidity in the room too high. So if you have water standing in your grow room, you're not growing pot, you're just playing around at it. And yeah, I don't think people that are playing around at it should necessarily be playing around at it. But I think they should have the right to try. Just as I have the right to freedom of speech, they should have the right to the same freedoms that I have. And this should be included in medical marijuana, because I have been fighting for 35 years to get it this far, and now you're trying to put it back to where it's recriminalized and did away with everything we've been fighting for the last 35 years. That's all. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? I'm sorry.
One of my lighters fell.
Anyone else that would like to address us on this issue?